Welcome back to rslash Prorevenge, where today's OP nearly sends a bully to an early grave. Our first story comes from a user named Askatask. Bully, when I was just 18, I landed a job in the Canadian oil fields. It was my first real job back in the early 2000s, paying $20 an hour, huge money compared to the $6 minimum wage at the time. The role was in well testing. Essentially, you connect a pressure tank and a flare stack to new oil and gas wells, then monitor the flow and collect data for the oil barons. The setup and teardown were grueling, but the rest was just recording numbers and data entry. Not bad for a starter gig, except for Gary. We worked in teams, either 2 guys for a 12-hour shift or 4 for a 24-hour rotation, 1 laborer and 1 supervisor per shift. I was stuck with a nasty, middle-aged alcoholic named Gary. He was out of shape and lazy, only lifting a finger for things I physically couldn't move alone, like 250-pound pipes. He spent most of his shift in the site trailer, watching movies, napping, and occasionally typing data. His favorite pastime, however, was tormenting me. I'm a tall guy, about 6'1", and he was significantly shorter. But back then, I was a baby-faced kid with zero confidence. He called me stupid constantly. When he realized I'd never used a power drill, he sneered. "Didn't your dad teach you anything?" I made the mistake of admitting my dad wasn't really around growing up. So, every time I messed up after that, Gary would say, "No wonder your dad left you." I tried to defend myself, but like every bully, he'd just say, "Can't you take a joke?" But we worked in remote areas, so I often had to eat dinner with him at small town bars. He drank heavily. Strangely, he could be almost pleasant after a couple of beers, but the next morning was always hell. I ended up driving us to the site in his truck every day. He got paid a travel allowance per kilometer, and we drove hundreds of kilometers daily. I got minimum wage for the travel time. He was usually hungover, refused to drive, and slept like a corpse in the passenger seat while I chauffeured him. I decided that kindness wouldn't fix this. I needed to use fear. One night at dinner, I suggested that since I did all the driving while he slept, maybe he should share some of that travel allowance money. He exploded. He screamed at me, verbally abused me, and threatened to fire me. I was young and terrified, actually ending up in angry tears. I resolved to get away from him, but first I saw an opening for revenge. The next morning, Gary was once again in a drunken slumber as I drove us to work. About 30 km from the site, I saw a semi-truck parked in a pullout. The engine was running, and the driver was outside stretching his legs. I formed a plan. Gary was a heavy sleeper, so he didn't wake up when I pulled over. I hopped out and asked the trucker for a favor. He agreed and got back into his massive rig to wait for my signal. I maneuvered Gary's pickup truck until we were bumper to bumper with the giant Peterbilt semi. I flashed the headlights, the signal. The trucker unleashed hell. He blasted his air horn, a sound like the apocalypse. Simultaneously, I laid on our horn and started screaming at the top of my lungs, "No! Ooh, D-U!" The noise was deafening. Gary woke up so violently, he actually dented the roof of the truck with his head. He literally soiled himself. His screams of terror quickly morphed into pure, unadulterated rage as he realized we were parked and safe. He was so angry he couldn't even form words to threaten me. I threw the truck in reverse and peeled away before he could get out, waving thanks to the trucker. About 10 kilometers down the road, Gary finally caught his breath enough to scream that he had high blood pressure and I could have caused a stroke. Years later, when I became a paramedic, I realized he was probably right. But in the moment, I just started laughing. "Can't you take a joke, Gary?" I asked. He kept sputtering threats, which just made me laugh harder. I was cackling like a hyena. He was torn between wanting to murder me and trying not to have a heart attack. The struggle was visible. For the next 20 minutes, I kept poking the bear. "Is your face always that shade of purple?" When we arrived, he ordered me out, fired me on the spot, and stomped off to call the owner. Whatever. I smoked a cigarette and enjoyed my victory while waiting 4 hours for the boss to pick me up. Gary tried to get the police involved for attempted murder, but the owner talked him down. On the ride back to the city, I told the big boss exactly why I did what I did. He actually laughed. He was a decent guy. I kept working for him until I went back to school, but he moved me to a different crew where I didn't have to deal with Gary. I also became a legend among the other guys at the company. Our next post is from Little Bitty Pretty One. Special treatment. Back in 2015, I was working my way through nursing school as a server at a popular restaurant. This place relied on word of mouth reputation, so service was everything. I had been there a few months and was trusted enough to mentor new hires. One night, I was shadowing an older guy who had just finished training. He was a bit shy and nervous, but a great worker. This was his first shift managing his own section, so I was nearby to help if he got overwhelmed. And overwhelmed he was. He got a table of 6 demanding 20-somethings with serious attitude problems. He came to me panicked. They want a specific dish that isn't on the menu, but the girl claims we have the ingredients and the other location makes it for her all the time. I told him to ask the kitchen. The cooks agreed to make it so that crisis was averted, but this just emboldened the leader of the table. She ran him ragged. Every time he brought something, she demanded something else. She was rude, impatient, and offered zero gratitude. I checked in on him in the back. He looked ready to quit. He told me the girl had spent the entire meal mocking him, calling him the worst waiter she'd ever seen, and bragging about how she was a trainer at our sister location, hence the special treatment. Then came the kicker. She claimed it was a multiple birthday celebration and demanded free cake and the birthday song immediately. She also wanted to stack multiple employee discounts on the bill. I was furious. I told him to plate the cakes but wait in the kitchen. I went to my manager and explained the situation. Our managers were amazing and always had our backs. When I told him about her behavior and her claim of being an employee at another branch, he smiled. "Let me make a phone call," he said, taking down her employee ID number. He gave me the green light for my plan. I rounded up every single employee I could find. We marched out to that table with the cakes. It was the biggest choir we'd ever assembled, and we sang. We screamed the "Happy Birthday" song at the top of our lungs. Since they were in a corner, the sound amplified and bounced off the walls. Their smug smiles vanished. They covered their ears. It was painfully loud and excruciatingly long. We beamed with fake joy while destroying their eardrums. While we were conducting our sonic assault, my boss was on the phone with her manager at the other location. The result? She did not get her employee discount. In fact, she didn't get a discount at all. I was at the host stand when my manager handed her the phone. I watched her face crumble as she started crying and begging not to be fired. Too late. Her manager had already been briefed on her conduct. I don't know if she managed to get her job back later, but watching her cry after treating my coworker like trash was incredibly satisfying. Our next post is from Candid Umpire. Baking soda. This story takes place in the ancient times of the internet, autumn of 1999. Back then, unmoderated chat rooms were the Wild West. No accounts, no logs, just pick a username and type. Naturally, this attracted a lot of creeps. I was 20 and my girlfriend was 21. She was a veteran of these chat rooms and known for handling trolls. One user, let's call him Farmer Bob, had infiltrated our group. He seemed normal at first, but soon the girls started reporting weird private messages and emails from him. We decided to trap him. My girlfriend posed as a knave new user to bait him. We learned he claimed to be a wealthy cattle farmer living in a rural area. However, it quickly became clear he was not the sharpest tool in the shed. He bragged about bizarre things, like his wooden shoes, in a way that was both creepy and hilarious. My girlfriend got bored and decided to escalate. She pretended she might be interested in hooking up, but only if he had cocaine, claiming it made her wild. He took the bait instantly, but admitted he couldn't afford it. So wait, didn't he just say he was a wealthy farm owner? The lies were crumbling. My girlfriend typed, "Oh, Farmer Bob, don't you know the trick? If you mix 3 parts baking soda with 1 part vanilla sugar, it gives you a rush just like cocaine, but with a better aftertaste. And it's cheap!" We thought this was so ridiculous he'd realize we were trolling. Instead, he thanked her for reminding him! He promised to whip up a batch immediately to test it before she visited. A few days later, we got an angry email in all caps. "We know you meant why. No, I had to kill to go here. Why will you your ice came now?" He was furious, but we weren't done. We convinced him he must have mixed the ratio wrong. To regain his trust, We claimed my girlfriend used this homemade nose candy for her side job starring in amateur German spanking videos. To prove it, we filmed the worst fake trailer in history. Her brother and his friend, who had long hair and pretended to be her, starred in it. One lay over the other's lap while getting spanked with a wooden spatula. I stood off camera clapping my hands to make sound effects. We shouted gibberish that sounded vaguely German. The video quality was terrible, pixelated and low frame rate, which actually made it look somewhat authentic. It was absurd. It should have been obvious satire. But Farmer Bob bought it. He begged to buy the full video. We told him we'd only sell it if he tried the baking soda recipe again. We never heard from him after that. I assume he finally realized it was all a prank, or maybe his nose just couldn't take any more abuse. The video file is lost on a broken hard drive, but I swear on my life this is a true story. Narrator OP, don't worry. This is way too weird and specific to be made up by AI. That was ours, Prorevenge. If you enjoyed this, check out my podcast for the audio version. Don't forget to subscribe for new Reddit stories every single day.